The company was on the verge of its IPO. My girlfriend of 5 years, the CEO, was sleeping with her assistant. Step by step, they worked to sideline me, stripping me of my power within the very company I had built. They pressured me to sign over my equity, to walk away with nothing. I decided to give them exactly what they wanted. As a bonus, I threw in my position as COO and my role as her boyfriend for good measure. Later, when she was on her knees, begging for forgiveness, I just looked at her with contempt. "Chloe," I said, a bitter smile on my face, "I gave you everything you wanted. What more could you possibly have to complain about?" Ever since my girlfriend, Chloe Vance, hired the fresh-faced college grad Ethan Hayes as her new assistant, her client dinners started multiplying. She was coming home later and later. Of course, I knew exactly what was happening. Every move they made was tracked. Timing it, I figured they were just about due. I had just finished a cigarette on the balcony when I saw Ethan's arm wrapped around Chloe as they stumbled out of the elevator and down the hallway to our apartment. Chloe froze when she saw me. She hadn't expected me to be waiting up. She frantically pushed Ethan away. "Caleb," she stammered, "I just had a little too much to drink." Ethan was worried, so he made sure I got home safe. I just nodded, my face unreadable, the shadows in my eyes hiding my thoughts. Ethan, carrying Chloe's designer handbag, followed them inside. He moved with an infuriating familiarity, taking Chloe's coat and kneeling to swap her heels for slippers. Then, as if he owned the place, he went straight to the kitchen, cut up a fresh melon, and brought it out on a platter. He sat down next to Chloe, feeding her pieces of fruit with a fork. "You've really got to take better care of Ms. Vance," he said to me, his tone a careful mix of concern and admonishment. "She's been exhausted from all the business trips." The sheer audacity of him, acting like the man of the house. A sharp, humorless laugh escaped my lips. "You know, if I didn't know any better, I'd think you were the one whose name is on the lease, Ethan. Are you planning on staying the night?" Ethan froze, awkwardly setting the melon down. "Mr. Ford, Chloe. Ms. Vance has been working incredibly hard lately. You can doubt me, but how can you possibly doubt her?" I shot him a cold look, a sarcastic smile playing on my lips. "Doubt." I stood up slowly and walked over to him, towering over him where he sat. "What exactly do you think I need to doubt, Ethan? Why don't you tell me?" The color drained from his face. He clearly hadn't expected me to be so direct. "Caleb, if you have a problem, take it up with me. Why are you giving Ethan a hard time?" Chloe snapped, jumping to his defense. I couldn't help but laugh. "Seriously, what exactly have I done to him?" Chloe faltered. A flicker of guilt crossed her eyes, but she quickly masked it with a defiant glare. "Caleb, don't overthink this. Ethan is my assistant. We have a purely professional relationship," she said, her voice firm. "I'm exhausted from my trip. Have you even asked me how I am since I walked in the door?" She gestured toward Ethan. "Look at how thoughtful and attentive he is. Instead of learning something from him, but giving him attitude." As the chief operating officer of the company, I personally managed nearly every major function. I knew perfectly well which projects required travel and which didn't. She had used the excuse of a business trip to take her assistant on a week-long beach vacation in Miami. I knew everything, but at that moment, I couldn't be bothered to call out their pathetic little performance. I just watched them, two clowns in a circus of their own making. Suddenly, Ethan's eyes turned red. "Ms. Vance, this is all my fault," he said, his voice thick with fake remorse. "I'm the one who made Mr. Ford jealous. I shouldn't be here. I'll leave right now." He said the words, but his body didn't move an inch. I stared at him, a flicker of raw anger in my eyes. "Ethan, if you're going to leave, then get the hell out. Don't forget your place." Ethan was stunned, his face flushing a deep crimson. Chloe's face went pale, seeing the fury in my eyes. She opened her mouth to argue but thought better of it. Instead, she turned to comfort Ethan, gently coaxing him until he finally left. I met Chloe right after she'd been in a horrific car accident. Her parents were killed instantly. Chloe herself was on the brink of death. It was me who pulled her from the wreckage moments before the car exploded. The doctor said if I'd been a minute later, she wouldn't have made it. After her recovery, Chloe developed a powerful dependence on me. She texted and called me constantly. Her parents had left her a small manufacturing plant, but she had zero business acumen or experience, and it was quickly failing. She begged me to help her. That, combined with the fact that she was undeniably beautiful and innocent back then, convinced me to invest my own capital and join her. 5 years. Vance Innovations was no longer a failing little factory. It was a major corporation that had just filed its S-1 for a public offering. For 5 years, I had poured everything I had into that company. This year, with the IPO on the line, Chloe had repeatedly asked me to take a vacation with her, to go to the beach and relax. To ensure the IPO went off without a hitch, I told her we had to wait. Once the company was public, I promised I would take all the time in the world to be with her. We could go anywhere she wanted, but it seemed she had run out of patience. 5 years is a long time. Long enough for someone to completely forget the person who saved her life. But what I could give her, I could just as easily take away. After seeing Ethan out, Chloe's face instantly turned cold. She was about to launch into a tirade. I cut her off. You've been asking me to hand over the Sterling Holdings partnership to Ethan, right? I said calmly. I've agreed. Sterling Holdings was the biggest player in the Seattle tech scene. We had already secured a preliminary agreement with them. All that was left was to sign the final contracts. Landing the Sterling deal would guarantee a smooth and successful IPO for Vance Innovations. The person who closed that deal would be hailed as the company's biggest hero. Chloe had been pushing me for weeks to give the project to Ethan, to please him. Her excuse was that we needed to give the new talent a chance to shine. But at that moment, I had already decided to give up on Chloe. And with her, the entire company we had built. That contract was meaningless to me now. Chloe stared at me, stunned. Then, a triumphant gleam appeared in her eyes, and the corners of her mouth turned up in a smirk. Glad to see you're finally coming to your senses. The next morning, I walked into Chloe's office with a prepared letter of resignation. Ms. Vance, I said, placing it on her desk. This is my resignation. It's time to let someone more deserving have my position. Chloe looked at me with a mocking expression, probably thinking I was just being dramatic after our fight. You willingly gave up the project last night, and now you're pulling this stunt. Are you a child, Caleb? Take your letter back. I'll pretend this never happened. Just then, Ethan burst through the door, his tone dripping with passive aggression. Mr. Ford, it's just one partnership, he said with a sneer. It's all for the good of the company. You don't need to threaten Ms. Vance with quitting, do you? If everyone acted like you, throwing a fit whenever they have a bad day, using their seniority to bully the CEO, the company would fall into chaos. My face darkened. I grabbed Ethan by the collar of his shirt and pulled him close, whispering in his ear, You have a girlfriend named Sarah Jenkins, right? Lives at the Orion, apartment 1701. How do you think Chloe would feel if she found out about that? Ethan's face went white as a sheet. He didn't dare say another word. You'd be wise to watch yourself around me. I'd had a full background check on Ethan done weeks ago. I knew he had a long-term girlfriend before he ever started at Vance Innovations. He'd hidden it well from Chloe. If she ever found out she was the other woman, she would lose her mind. As I expected, Ethan's goading worked. Chloe's expression turned grim. Caleb, you need to get in line. If you keep this up, I don't care if you helped build this company from the ground up. I'll approve your resignation. No need to wait, I said flatly. Just sign it. Her eyes filled with rage. With a sharp huff, she snatched a pen and scrawled her signature across the page. The employees gathered outside the glass walls of her office were in shock. Everyone knew that I was the architect of the company's success. I had poured my blood, sweat, and tears into it to leave my position as COO right before the IPO. It was like doing all the work just to let someone else claim the prize. A few of the division heads I had personally mentored rushed over, urging me not to be impulsive. They knew what a monumental loss this was. It was a career suicide. I just smiled and shook my head, saying nothing. They could all see the writing on the wall. With Ethan being Chloe's new favorite, he was the most likely candidate to replace me. He was my sworn enemy in the office and, more importantly, a complete moron. He hadn't been with the company long, but he'd already tanked several promising projects. But with Chloe protecting him, he continued to strut around, acting like he knew everything, an arrogant fool. With me gone, the competent middle managers I'd trained would have their lives made into a living hell. I quietly reassured them, telling them not to worry. They had worked with me for years and knew I wouldn't go down without a fight. They understood immediately that I had another move to play, and they stopped trying to persuade me. Since I've officially resigned, Ms. Vance, you should find someone to handle the transition of my duties as soon as possible. Seeing my lack of deference, her face tightened with barely suppressed fury. She glared towards the door and spoke through gritted teeth. That's none of your concern. Get out. A slight smile touched my lips as I turned and walked away without a single look back. I heard a loud crash behind me. She had picked up a pen holder from her desk and hurled it against the wall, her eyes practically shooting fire. I was at our apartment packing my things when Chloe came home early, which was a surprise. She watched me for a long time, her expression a mix of emotions. Finally, she spoke. Caleb, let's talk. We were both impulsive today with the resignation. The company is about to go public. We need fresh blood, she continued, trying to reason with me. Ethan is a Wharton grad. He's brilliant and capable. He just needs a chance. I'm sure you can understand my position, right? Brilliant and capable. Was Chloe blind? I had given Ethan chances. He fumbled project after project, and who was always there to clean up his messes? Me. Chloe forced a smile and reached for my arm. Let's just forget about what happened today. So many people were watching. I felt cornered. Come back to the company. The COO position will always be yours. No one can take that from you. I knew, of course, that she had signed the letter in a fit of anger. Now that she'd cooled down, she was regretting it. But she wasn't trying to save our relationship. She was trying to save her company. She needed my shares. Even without a title, I was still a major shareholder. I jerked my arm away from her touch, my eyes locked on hers. No, I said coldly. You know that once I make a decision, I don't go back on it. As for the contracts, the projects, the credit, you can give it to whomever you want. From now on, you're the one calling all the shots. Isn't that what you wanted? She hadn't expected this reaction. Her face fell. Caleb, don't you forget, it was Vance Innovations that gave you everything you have. Who do you think you are? She spat. Without my company, you're nothing. I had to laugh. Before I took over, Vance Innovations was a bankrupt factory on the verge of collapse. How could she have the audacity to say something like that? I couldn't believe I'd never seen how arrogant and self-important she truly was. I would soon show her whether her company gave me everything or whether I gave her company everything. Whenever we used to fight, Chloe would storm into the bedroom and wait for me to come and appease her. I'm sure she expected the same thing this time. After all we'd been through, I had always shown her an incredible amount of patience and forgiveness. I was always the first one to give in. But now, she was nothing more than garbage in my eyes. This time, I had no intention of placating her. I finished packing my bags. Just as I was about to walk out the door, Chloe came out of the bedroom and blocked my path. Her tone was much softer now. I admit, I've been spending a little too much time with Ethan lately, and it made you jealous, she said, her voice gentle. But you have to believe me, you're the only one I love. He's just a kid. I see him as a little brother. When I didn't respond, she sighed dramatically. Ethan has worked so hard since he joined the company, and so many people here look down on him. When I asked you to give him the Sterling project, it was because I wanted him to earn everyone's respect. Why can't you understand that? Caleb, I'm doing this for our future, she insisted. With the IPO coming, we need more talent. I don't want you to have to carry the entire weight of the company on your shoulders. It breaks my heart to see you so stressed. I was stunned. How could she say such shameless things with a straight face? If I didn't have a phone full of concrete evidence of her affair, I might have actually been moved. Her favoritism towards Ethan was obvious to everyone at the company. Besides the loyal team I had built, there were plenty of others who sneered at me behind my back, who actively tried to sabotage my work. Chloe wasn't oblivious to it. She just chose to ignore it. I stared at her coldly. Are you done? If you're done, I'm leaving. Seeing my determination to leave, a hint of desperation crept into her eyes. You're really going to leave me? I looked at her, my expression a mask of scorn. What do you think? I had no interest in something that had been sullied by another man. She grabbed my arm again, her voice tight with panic. You know that Vance Innovations is all I have left from my father. If you're really determined to leave me, fine, but you have to leave your shares behind. The company is about to go public. I can't trust you to just walk away with a huge stake at a time like this. Her eyes welled up with tears. I've been with you for so many years. I gave you the best years of my life. You can't do this to me. She looked so pitiful on the verge of tears. I sighed internally. Chloe had zero talent for business, but her gift for acting was truly remarkable. She missed her calling. My 21% stake in Vance Innovations was currently valued at around $30 million. If the IPO was successful, the company's valuation would soar, and my shares would be worth at least $100 million. But my goal wasn't to take it public. It was to burn it to the ground. In my hands, that stock would soon be worthless. With that in mind, I spoke. Chloe, you and I both know that the Sterling Holdings deal is a sure thing. There are no more obstacles to the IPO. Once the company goes public, my shares will be worth a minimum of $100 million. But for old time's sake, I won't make things difficult for you. $35 million. I'll sell you my entire stake. If you can't meet that price, there's nothing more to talk about. I knew the company's financials inside and out. $35 million was every last cent of liquid capital Vance Innovations had. Step one of my plan was to drain the company of all its cash flow. Chloe's face turned pale. "You bastard, Caleb," she hissed, her face red with anger. "Your initial investment was only $500,000, and now you have the nerve to demand $35 million. Have you no decency?" Now that we were past the point of no return, what was the point of decency? And besides, without me, where would Vance Innovations be today? "Chloe, you know as well as I do that I'm not asking for much," I said calmly. "And if you don't buy back these shares, I'm sure one of your competitors would be very interested, and they'd be willing to pay a much higher price." Chloe was seething, but she knew I was right. A flicker of regret crossed her face. After a long moment of silence, she tried a different tactic. "Caleb, I know I've been spending too much time with Ethan, and it made you angry," she said, her voice soft again. "I promise. I'll keep my distance from him from now on. We can go back to how things were, running the company together. Okay, I know I've neglected you. That's my fault, and I'll do better. You know you're the only one I love." Still acting. Even now, she didn't want to pay the money, but she couldn't bear to let go of my shares. She was trying to have it both ways. What a brilliant scheme. I was done watching her perform. I shoved her aside. "You have 10 days. After that, I'll find another buyer." She froze, speechless. I didn't look back. I just turned and walked away. A week later, Chloe called and invited me to a party celebrating the closing of the Sterling Holdings deal. I knew that landing this contract had given her a new surge of confidence. This meant she was ready to sign the papers to buy my shares. I accepted the invitation. At the party, the champagne was flowing and the atmosphere was electric. Everyone was high on the promise of the impending IPO. A lot of people were already drunk. In any company, you'll find sycophants and opportunists. Many of them shot me looks filled with scorn. Ethan, as the hero who had closed the Sterling deal, was the center of attention. A constant stream of people lined up to offer him toasts. He was practically floating on air. Egging them on, a group of employees started chanting for Ethan and the CEO, Chloe Vance, to link arms and drink a celebratory toast. Ethan's other hand rested possessively on Chloe's bare shoulder, an incredibly intimate gesture. After they drank, the ballroom erupted in applause and cheers. But they weren't done. The crowd started chanting again, demanding they kiss. Ethan's face was flush with victory, as if he had reached the pinnacle of his life. He kept glancing over at me, a triumphant smirk on his face. Chloe, for her part, giggled and acted shy, but then slowly closed her eyes, ready. The managers I had personally trained all looked furious, disgusted by Ethan's smug, pathetic display. Just as their lips were about to meet, I strode forward and slapped Ethan hard across the face. The sharp crack of the slap silenced the entire room. Everyone stared at me in disbelief. To their surprise, my expression was perfectly calm, as if I hadn't been the one to just strike him. Ethan was completely dazed. Then, his face twisted in a surge of pure rage. But when his eyes met my piercing gaze, his anger deflated. The alcohol seemed to evaporate from his system instantly. He was still grinding his teeth, his eyes full of a murderous hatred. This idiot had been using Chloe's money to buy his little girlfriend expensive gifts, visiting her every few days. I had all the leverage I needed, and he still had the nerve to provoke me. He was asking for it. 7. The break, it was Chloe who exploded. Her chest heaved with fury as she pointed a trembling finger at me. "Caleb, are you insane? What gives you the right to hit Ethan?" Every eye in the room was fixed on the three of us. The air was thick with tension. I calmly swirled the wine in my glass, then flicked my wrist, sending the deep red liquid splashing across Chloe's face. A collective gasp went through the crowd. They looked at me as if I had lost my mind. Chloe was frozen in place, the wine dripping from her chin onto her white designer dress. Her expression shifted from shock to fury, and finally to a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. "Caleb, you dare!" Her voice trembled, the words forced through clenched teeth. Ethan rushed forward, pulling a handkerchief from his pocket to try and clean her face, but she shoved him away violently. Her eyes were locked on me, as if she wanted to tear me apart with her bare hands. "Chloe," I said, my voice dripping with derision, "I don't have time to play along with this pathetic soap opera you two are starring in. If you don't want my shares, there are plenty of people who do. I'm done here." Seeing me turn to leave, Chloe finally snapped out of her rage, a wave of panic washing over her. She regretted her little game now. Swallowing her anger, she hurried after me and grabbed my arm. "Caleb, don't misunderstand. We were just playing a game." I laughed coldly. "I get it. You got caught up in a moment. Should I have someone get a room for you two?" A flash of anger crossed her face, but she forced it down. "Caleb, we went too far, I admit it. But there's really nothing going on between Ethan and me. Please don't get the wrong idea." She turned to the crowd. "Please continue enjoying yourselves. Mr. Ford and I have some important business to discuss." She took my arm and led me to a private suite upstairs. Once I confirmed the $35 million had been wired to my account, I signed a share transfer agreement without hesitation. The moment it was done, I stood up to leave. Chloe's voice, full of complex emotions, called out from behind me. "Are you that desperate to be done with me? So desperate that you'd walk away from another $65 million. Without turning back, I tossed a single phrase over my shoulder. "I'm too dirty." I heard her shriek behind me, her voice filled with venom. "Caleb Ford, who the hell do you think you are? You are nothing but a stray dog my family took in. Without me, you are nothing." 8. The phallus I walked out of the hotel. I pulled out my phone and made a call. "Notify all departments. As of tomorrow morning, we are terminating all existing and future projects with Vance Innovations. Effective immediately." This was step 2. My parents divorced when I was in middle school. My father's company, Ford & Sons, was a moderately successful business in Seattle, but nothing major. My mother, on the other hand, had built Sterling Holdings from the ground up. In just 10 years, she had turned it into the biggest tech conglomerate in the Pacific Northwest. And I was her only son. For the past year, my mother's health had been declining, and she had repeatedly asked me to come work for her at Sterling. But I was so focused on taking Vance Innovations public that I had refused. The only reason Sterling Holdings had partnered with Vance Innovations in the first place was because I had personally arranged it. And now, at this critical juncture, just before the IPO, the woman I'd spent 5 years building an empire for had stabbed me in the back. If that was how she wanted it, then I would happily send her back to where she started. Half of the companies that partnered with Vance Innovations were subsidiaries of Ford & Sons, or Sterling Holdings. The other half were vendors whose owners I had strong personal relationships with. The day after I submitted my resignation at Vance, I had taken a position as executive vice president at Sterling Holdings. By crossing me, they knew that Vance Innovations' dream of going public was now nothing more than a pipe dream. Sterling would, of course, offer them new contracts to compensate for any losses incurred by breaking their agreements with Vance. It was an easy choice for them. The next day, Chloe and Ethan arrived at the office, still basking in the glow of their supposed victory. Chloe's executive assistant knocked and entered, her face pale with panic. Ms. Vance, all of our major partners have been calling all morning. They're all terminating their contracts. And on top of that, Mr. Wallace from Ridgeline Corp and Mr. Chun from Trident Industries are demanding immediate payment for all outstanding invoices. They're threatening to sue. They're also demanding damages for breach of contract. They're waiting for you in the main conference room right now. What? How is this possible? Chloe's face drained of all color. 9. The reckoning after a moment of shocked silence. She scrambled out of her office and raced to the conference room, with Ethan trailing behind her, looking as if the world was ending. Mr. Wallace saw Chloe and didn't even try to hide his disdain. Ms. Vance, I assume you know why we're here. Our partnership is over. If the outstanding balance isn't cleared today, we'll see you in court. Vance Innovations had no cash flow anymore. There was no way she could pay them, and a lawsuit was the last thing she needed. The company had already filed for its IPO. It was still in the review period. A high-profile lawsuit now would be catastrophic. These vendors had been reliable partners for years. For them to turn on her at such a critical moment filled Chloe with a rage she couldn't show. She forced a tight, brittle smile. Mr. Wallace, Mr. Chun, we've been working together for years. We've always had a wonderful relationship. Why this sudden move to terminate our agreements without any warning? Besides, Vance Innovations is stronger than ever. We filed for our IPO. We're about to take off. If you pull out now, it would be a huge loss for your companies as well, wouldn't it? Mr. Chun of Trident Industries scoffed. Stronger than ever, Ms. Vance, you're incredibly naive. A few years ago, your company was nothing but a tiny factory. The only reason our two corporations worked with you was out of respect for Caleb Ford. The moment she heard Caleb's name, Chloe's face went white. She struggled to maintain her composure. Mr. Chun, Mr. Wallace, Caleb may have left the company, but that doesn't have to affect our partnership. The strength and potential of Vance Innovations are still here. Mr. Wallace cut her off with a cold laugh. Ms. Vance, let's skip the corporate platitudes. Now that Caleb is no longer with your company, we have no reason to continue this relationship. Exactly, Mr. Chun added. Without him, Vance Innovations is just another small company that could go under at any moment. It doesn't matter if you file for an IPO. Even if you were already public, it wouldn't change a thing. Chloe's face grew paler by the second. She finally began to grasp the severity of the situation. She gritted her teeth, making one last desperate attempt. Gentlemen, Caleb may be gone, but our core business is strong. We just secured the partnership with Sterling Holdings. The IPO is right around the corner. If you pull your funding now, you'll be missing out on a golden opportunity. Wallace and Chun exchanged a look, a hint of pity in their eyes. They couldn't understand why I would let Sterling sign a deal with Vance if I was planning to destroy it, but they had done their homework. They knew my departure from the company had been ugly. That could only mean one thing. Vance Innovations was finished. Seeing the two men hesitate, Ethan thought he saw an opening and jumped in. Mr. Wallace, Mr. Chun is. Vance has decided to promote me to COO. It's widely known within the company that my skills far exceed Caleb's. You can rest assured that under our leadership, Vance Innovations will be more successful than ever, which means greater returns for you. The two seasoned executives looked at the young, arrogant Ethan as if he were a complete fool. They knew perfectly well he was the reason I had left. Chloe must have been blind, trading a diamond for a piece of glass. Mr. Wallace didn't mince words. Who the hell are you to even compare yourself to Caleb Ford? Ethan's fists clenched at his sides, but he didn't dare retaliate. He could only lower his head to hide his shame and fury. Chloe's heart pounded in her chest. She forced another smile, trying to smooth things over. Gentlemen, Ethan may be young, but he is very talented. I assure you, we will not let you down. Mr. Wallace gave her a cold, dismissive look. Ms. Vance, you should worry about solving your immediate crisis first. Don't say I didn't warn you. You have 3 days to settle the invoices. Otherwise, we'll see you in court. As for the future of your company, he chuckled humorlessly. Let me be blunt. Without Caleb Ford, you won't last another month. With that, Mr. Wallace and Mr. Chun stood up and walked out of the conference room without a backward glance. Chloe collapsed in her chair, all the strength gone from her body. She stared blankly ahead, her mind a complete void. Over the next few days, Chloe called me relentlessly. I didn't answer a single one, but she finally found me at a restaurant I used to frequent. She rushed over and grabbed my hand, her eyes pleading. Caleb, please come back, she begged. I was wrong. I regret everything. I know I shouldn't have gotten so close to Ethan. If you come back, I'll fire him immediately. I promise. I'll only ever care about you. Please come back and help me. I snatched my hand away in disgust. Chloe, do you have any memory of how I treated you all these years, and how you treated me in return? Chloe shook her head frantically, tears streaming down her face. Caleb, I really know I was wrong. You know I can't survive without you. If you just come back, I'll do anything you say. I promise. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. To pay off Ridgeline and Trident, Chloe had been forced to take out high-interest loans. And while that had temporarily appeased those two vendors, word had spread like wildfire that Vance Innovations was out of cash. Now, all her other suppliers, who weren't due to be paid until the end of the year, were knocking on her door, demanding immediate payment. Several had already filed lawsuits. The scandal was all over the business news. Any day now, the SEC would officially reject Vance's IPO application. Chloe was well and truly panicking. Your promises are worthless to me, I said coldly. I gave you my complete devotion, and you repaid me with betrayal. Do you really think a few empty words can make me forget everything that happened? We are done, Chloe. Completely. Even after I said that, she wouldn't give up. She reached for me again. Caleb, you're still angry with me, aren't you? You know that after my parents died, I don't have any family. You're all I have. Can we please stop fighting? Her whining was like a fly buzzing in my ear. It was infuriating. Enough, Chloe. Stop bothering me and get the hell out of my life. I shoved her hand away. She stumbled backward and fell to the floor. Tears flowed freely down her cheeks. Caleb, please, I'm begging you, help me. I'm so sorry. Please don't abandon me. I just laughed, looking down at the pathetic woman crumpled on the floor without a shred of pity. By now, a crowd of onlookers had gathered around our table, whispering among themselves. My appetite was gone. I called the waiter over to pay the bill. I stood up and looked down at her one last time. Chloe, my decision is final. Everything I gave you, I will take back. Then, ignoring her desperate cries, I walked out of the restaurant. As expected, 3 days later, Vance Innovations' IPO application was officially rejected by the SEC. The contract between Sterling Holdings and Vance Innovations had been drafted by me personally. Ethan, having torpedoed so many other projects, was desperate to prove himself by landing the Sterling deal. He needed a win to make everyone see him as a star. I used his desperation against him. I had embedded a hidden valuation adjustment mechanism, a poison pill, in the contract. This was step 3. On the day of the signing, he glanced at the clause, but was so eager to close the deal that he didn't give it a second thought. He signed it without question. The clause stipulated that if Vance Innovations failed in its IPO bid, all assets of the company would be transferred to Sterling Holdings. I was willing to walk away from a potential $65 million windfall because my plan was to take the entire company. Once it was mine, I would simply rename it, sign new agreements with the suppliers, and within 6 months, the company would be ready for a successful IPO. Acquiring Vance Innovations was my entry ticket to the executive suite at Sterling, a move that would solidify my power and prove my worth. When I walked into the offices of Vance Innovations with a team from Sterling, everyone was stunned. I saw Ethan trying to sneak out the back door, but I didn't bother to stop him. Chloe stared at me, her eyes wide with a manic energy, as if she was trying to see into my very soul. Her voice was a high-pitched, trembling shriek. Caleb, you planned all of this, didn't you? You were plotting against me from the very beginning. I looked at her, a cold, mocking smile on my face. You finally figured it out, Chloe. A little too late, though. She lunged at me, grabbing the front of my shirt. Why would you do this to me? She screamed hysterically. What did I ever do to you that was so wrong? Why did you have to destroy everything I had? I shoved her away, my voice like ice. When you were betraying me, Chloe, did you ever stop to think it would end like this? When you were using Ethan to sideline me, when you were emotionally blackmailing me to sign over my shares, did you ever think it would come to this? What right do you have to question me now? Chloe collapsed onto the floor, tears streaming down her face. She just shook her head, her voice a hoarse whisper. No, it wasn't like that. I cut her off, my tone dripping with contempt. You just thought that Caleb Ford was a dog your family owned, someone you could throw away whenever you felt like it. Is that it? Well, you were wrong. What I give, I can always take back. Her fate was sealed. With a thud, she fell to her knees before me, her eyes filled with utter despair. Caleb, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Please forgive me. Okay, there was nothing between me and Ethan, I swear. We can start over. I'll do whatever you want. Even now, she was still lying to my face. The look I gave her was one of profound disappointment. I took a manila envelope from my briefcase and threw it at her. The photos inside scattered across the floor at her feet. Chloe's eyes fell on the images. Her pupils constricted, and her face went deathly white. There they were in glossy high definition. Chloe and Ethan embracing on a Miami beach, their intimate moments in a hotel room, even a shot of them kissing in his car. Every picture was a sharp, undeniable indictment. She sank to the floor, her body trembling. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Finally, she looked up at me, her eyes wild with panic and fear. "Caleb, these are fake, right? Someone is trying to frame me. You believe me, don't you? I never." "Enough," I roared, my voice cutting through the air like a shard of glass. "Chloe, are you still going to lie, even now? Do you really think I'm that stupid?" She opened her mouth, as if to protest again, but then her shoulders slumped in defeat. She lowered her head, silent tears falling onto the cold floor. She looked so fragile, as if a single touch would shatter her. I knelt and tossed a second stack of photos in front of her. "You betrayed me for Ethan," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "But what you didn't know is that he has had a girlfriend this whole time. The great CEO of Vance Innovations, played for a fool by a kid fresh out of college, being the other woman for a worthless piece of trash. You must be so proud." With a shaking hand, Chloe picked up the new photos. There was Ethan, arm in arm with a pretty young woman, both of them smiling brightly. There were pictures of them feeding each other ice cream, kissing in a park. There was even a photo of Ethan buying the girl an expensive necklace. Each image was a knife, twisting deeper in her heart. Staring at the evidence of her complete and utter ruin, Chloe finally broke. She scrambled to her feet, her face a mask of pure hatred. "Ethan," she shrieked, her voice echoing through the silent office. "Get out here. You ruined me. I'll kill you." Watching her descend into madness, I smiled. Perfect. Now, they could tear each other apart. It had nothing to do with me anymore. Epilogue A, few months later, the newly rebranded company, now a subsidiary of Sterling Holdings, had a wildly successful IPO, its market value multiplying several times over. And I became the youngest CEO in Sterling's history. Ethan Hayes never escaped Chloe's wrath. By the time the police found him, he had been tortured so brutally he was unrecognizable. He died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. Chloe Vance was arrested for kidnapping and murder. When my assistant delivered the news, my expression didn't change. It was as if I were hearing a story about complete strangers.